Good morning, everyone. This is Monday, December the 9th. This is a meeting of the Tennessee Real Estate Appraiser Commission. Welcome. Let's begin with our roll call called order, beginning at my left. Please read your name and where you're from.
Nancy Point, Rogersville, Tennessee.
Mark Johnstone, Jackson, Tennessee.
Michael Green, Johnson City.
Norman Hall, Brentwood, Tennessee.
Gary Standifer, Franklin, Tennessee.
And Eric Collinsworth, Arrington, Tennessee.
Excellent. Thank you all. Thank you for your attendance at this holiday time. This regularly scheduled commission meeting is taking place in the first floor conference room of the Davy Crockett Tower, 500 James Robertson Parkway, Nashville, Tennessee. A notice of this commission meeting was posted on the TREC website on November the 19th, 2013. Do I hear a motion to adopt the published agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes to adopt the agenda. First item on the agenda is the director's report. Ms. Avers?
Morning. First, I'd like to take an opportunity to introduce a couple of guests we have in the room. We have Assistant Commissioner Bill Giannini and I'd actually forgotten your title, but it's Kimberly Whaley. You wear so many hats now. You Accountant 3.
Fireman.
Welcome. We're glad you came.
They're going to provide some information to you this morning on budget and initiatives. So I'm going to let them take the reins here this morning, and then I'll provide the rest of my director's report.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. We're glad to be here. It is so good or so cool that you all announce where you're from. And I've been before now, I don't know, 10 boards, and I think you're the only ones who do that. And I'm going to recommend to all the boards. I think that's great. All are from. So I'm glad you're here in Nashville, glad you made it safe. We're going to try to come before you once a year after our year-end close and we get our numbers in. We want to keep you informed about where your money's coming from and what we're doing with it when we get it. And I think it's very important that each of you as board members understand how your board is working and what we're doing with your licensing fees and other things. You have a great staff that really does a good job, and it's an opportunity for us to come in and kind of let you know. I think it's very important when you're out and about talking to people in your profession, when you get asked a question about how things work, that you have a good understanding of that. And I hope that this will help you do that. So do you all have this on your iPad, a copy of the budget close?
You do. It's just past the director's report on page.
I brought paper copies if you need them. But
5.
Does it look like this? Is that it?
No, sir.
Oh, page 5.
Oh.
Page 5 on your iPad.
Just one more past what you have.
Thank you, sir.
So I'm going to run through this. I am not going to go line item by line item. If you guys want, and ladies, at any point want to stop and ask questions about anything, feel free to do so. But I will try to make it as brief as possible. If you look at the top in the far right-hand corner, you've got fiscal year 12-13, and then to the left, the previous 3 years. You can see that your regular salaries and wages were $71,782. And I'm going to drop down now to your total payroll expenditures of $108,399. That was down significantly from the previous 2 years and even more so from fiscal year 9 and 10. I also want to point out to you that in 12-13 there was a 1.5% pay raise that went into effect. So coupled with the fact that you've had a decrease, and that does include a pay raise. So hats off to your board staff for getting the job done with less money. So And then your travel was $23,445. That is board member travel. That is up a little bit from the previous 2 years. If you drop down then to grand total of expenditures was $273,516. That's again down significantly from the year before. I'm going to drop down to your total expenditures, $447,721. You can see your cost backs of $174,205. That's up. We're also pulling out now your legal costs so that you can see that. Previously, they had not been doing that. And you can see that was $71,298. Your licensing revenue was $620,994, which is down from the previous year. Your net revenue was $631,414, down from the previous year again. That left your fiscal year balance at $183,692, and your prior fiscal year reserve was $968,914, leaving that at $1,152,606. Any questions so far?
I guess, and this may not be a question for you, why was licensing revenue down so significantly?
Well, if you look at, and I've actually got that, that's the next thing I was going to talk about. We, looking at the previous 4 years, last year you're actually up for 2013, 2,467. The previous year was 2,200. 2011 was 2513 and 2010 was 2558. So you actually you were at your high for the years that we're looking at. In 2010, it dropped down as low as 2200 in 2012, and then in 2013 it's back up. So that's a trend that's you're going in the right direction. The revenue, explain what
Nicole, the AMC renewals.
The AMC's law went into effect in 2011, and so they're going to add a cyclical payment renewal cycle to biannual, and they're alternating with the highs and lows of the appraisers, so it's going to actually balance it out a little bit.
So, but yeah, I think the trend is good. The fact that you went back up, 250 licensees from 2012 to 2013 is a good thing, and it's probably a good indication for the profession and for the economy. The fact that it's moving back up after 3 years of decline, so that's a good thing. I feel like you guys are your director and her staff are doing a great job taking care of your money. We are, especially with your program and the real estate program and other professions affected by the downturn in the real estate market, we've been very, very conscientious about watching what we spend and being very cautious about adding, new staff and those kinds of things. And I think that's evident here in the fact that you're still performing, you're running in the black. And so again, it's a tribute to your staff. We are also doing some neat things. Before I move on, anybody have any more questions about the budget? Close? Okay. We are also doing some other neat things. We are adding a new licensing system. We've already contracted for that, and your staff, along with the rest of the programs in the division, have been participating in helping construct that licensing system. It's very exciting for us. We have a system that we're using now, they bought in 1993. So it's a very, very old system. We got our money's worth out of it, and we're going to have a going away party for that system, and very excited about the new one. And we've also been participating in conducting a customer-focused government training, which is a big initiative for the governor. And I'm very excited to say that Dennis here was one of our trainers for that for about half of our division. He did a fabulous job, and I think everybody enjoyed his style of teaching. And
It was fun.
It was fun. It was very fun. I was able to participate in all but one of the classes, and Kimberly did it as well. We had 4 people from the division that participated, so these 2 and 2 others, and they gave that class to about 150 people. And it was unlike most trainings that we have to endure here at state government. They made it fun. They made it exciting, and I think it's going to be a thing that we're already seeing benefits from. Getting our staff to understand that, you know, we're not like Kroger, where if you make the customer mad, they go to Publix. If you need a real estate appraiser license, we're the only shop in town. So we think that's an added burden on our part to make sure that we're providing the kind of service that you expect and that your licensees expect. And the customer-focused government is a key tenet for the governor's initiative to transform state government in Tennessee. And again, you guys have a gem over here as far as a teacher. So we're very excited about it. A lot of good things are happening. We've moved over here. Did we get the rent for them? I think we're actually saving you a little bit of money in rent now that we've moved over here, a little tighter space. So we're always looking at things that we can do to reduce your costs and maintain or improve the quality of the service.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your last name. What was your last name?
It's hard to, I understand. It's Giannini.
Hey, spell that.
Giannini.
Thank
You can
sir.
call me Bill.
Okay, thank you. Bill?
Sure.
I have a observation to make, if I may, please. And I'm observing that, number one, our regular salaries and wages for, and I don't know who all this includes. I don't know whether it includes our director, Dennis, charges for Keeling, Mr. Jesse over here, exactly who is included in this. But as you pointed out, and I'm in full agreement with you, our executive director has done a fabulous job. And we've got $968,000 in reserve. Is there anything we can do about a bonus or something of this nature for the work that the staff for the Real Estate Appraiser Commission has done in order to compensate them for their hard work and their diligence in keeping us in line with rules and regulations, make sure we don't do something wrong, and for their dedication to this profession?
Well, Mr. Hall, I sympathize with you and agree with you, and very much if there was any way possible for me to get that money and pass any of it along to your staff, we would certainly do that because they have earned it. I will tell you that's way outside of my authority. The governor and the Department F&A determined that. But I will say also that the staff this past year, July 1, 2013, received a significant raise across the board, on average about 6%. So on top. Now you won't see that number yet because you'll see that at the end of the fiscal year 14.
I just think they do an excellent job.
They really do.
And since we've got this much in reserve, and probably a lot of that, the reason for that is their financial or physical responsibility that they have shown, then I think that they should be rewarded or compensated for this. And this might be outside of your area. However, I'm sure you're much closer to whomever than I am. So I think if there's any way at all we can do that, we would appreciate it.
And part of the customer-focused government, last year the governor passed the TEAM Act, which you may or may not have heard about, but that is, again, kind of completely overhauling the state employee service model that we've always used, the civil service model. And one of the key components of that eventually, hopefully, will result in, if the governor's hope, will result in performance-based incentives where actually we can reward those that are really doing a great job. I think, very much the governor believes that hard work should be rewarded and not just, a parking space for a day or a...
But this is my point, because I think that the state quite frequently loses good people because they're not adequately compensated. Now, I'm sure that you and everybody in this room can point out to me state employees who they feel are overpaid at this point in time. I wouldn't argue with that either. But I do feel our numbers, and we look at our staff, then I believe we have room in here to reward them for their diligence that they have done or had, serving this commission.
Sir, and I think the governor very much agrees with you that we do lose the best people to the private sector because we haven't been there. They've done salary studies. They continue to do salary studies to try to make sure that we're competing with the private sector and to get those up. I would say the two are not necessarily linked in the reserve and what we pay. I think that's the constant. That's what we do. That's our job. That's Director Avers' job, is to make sure that we keep you from going in the red and that we're keeping good staff. The governor's doing everything he can do to help us to be able to do that. It's a very long process sometimes to justify giving raises. I can tell you that when a governor goes out and gives raises to state employees, he knows he's going to be criticized right out of the gate.
Two things happen there. Number one, it's got to be a minimal amount because of the numbers included there.
Yes, sir.
Second thing is, if you give somebody a tremendous raise, and then you go along with raising every year after that with the benefits included, it can easily spiral out of so all of a sudden you're way out of. I'm looking at a one-time deal, so to speak.
Kind of a bonus.
Exactly.
Right.
For what they've done during the year. I mean, they've done a good job. We've got the reserves, and I think they should be considered for this one-shot deal. Next year, if they, we rock along, we don't do as well, okay, you don't get the bonus next year. But if we got it and they contribute towards it, they ought to be rewarded.
Mr. Hall, we appreciate your comments.
Duly noted. Duly noted.
Yes. Mr. Johnstone has a question.
Mr. Giovanni, thank you for coming today. I had a question about the reserves, and I'm not sure if there's a correlation here or not. I know in county government, we have to maintain a certain dollar amount in fund balance to maintain our bond rating and those kind of things. Are these reserves here tied to the state's bond rating? And is that the reason? Are there minimums in there that they have to have, like 15% or 12.5%? Or are these reserves just straight out Tennessee Real Estate Appraiser Commission reserves, not impacting the state government's fund balance?
That is correct. Now, I will.
It does or doesn't?
It does. It does not. This is Tennessee Real Estate Appraiser Reserve.
So we would have autonomy over these reserves. I mean, if we wanted to say, okay, we can just reduce the licensing fee by $50 per licensee because we've got reserves. I'm not saying we'd do that. I'm just saying we would have the authority to do that.
Yes, very much. And I think, one of the things that we certainly are encouraging boards to do, I mean, that's our responsibility is to manage what you are bringing in, and then for you to make the decisions about, are you bringing in enough, or do you need to bring in less, or do you need to bring in more? We very much don't want you to end each year with a substantial positive balance. We also don't want you to end the year in the red. I think your profession in particular, and the real estate profession in particular, was very wise to not make any kind of dramatic reduction in your licensing fee over the past 5 years, because there's really not been any way to determine what your next year was going to look like. I think there was a lot of uncertainty about it. I do think if we were to see at the end of 13-14 that you had another increase in the number of licensees, it certainly would be a good time to consider a modest fee reduction to your licensees. That's the best thing this board could do.
But it is not tied to the state's fund balance, and we do have autonomy on that. So if that's the case, then backing up to what Commissioner Hall had indicated, could we not necessarily call it a salary or a bonus or an incentive, just take all those terms off the table, but perhaps some type of learning allowance or travel? I mean, if we have the autonomy, what's to prohibit us from doing that?
Well, we are not. We don't have the authority to do that, and I'll tell you, it's It's a big issue for us that we have, and it's a big issue for legislators that these boards, and again, it's the reason that we want you to so closely manage, and we want to so closely manage the revenue that you're taking in, because once we put it in this account, the only way that we can get this money back is for a substantial improvement such as core, which we are using. We will be able to use some of this money for core, the new licensing system, or to fund a deficit in your annual operating expense current year. Otherwise, it just goes back in, it just goes into this account. And it is a strange, illogical thing, but it's that way across every regulatory board in the state that does not take general fund money. So we just don't have that authority by statute to do that.
I think it's important to note, too, we have this reserve balance. However, in 2015, way significant changes occur in our profession and background checks, and there's a lot of new systems coming our way that it's good to be prepared to pay more for these systems. So
That is, as well as there may be a possibility of needing some temporary staff for that time period.
absolutely.
I think the budget's also showing kind of a false high too, because of the initial registration of a lot of AMCs. I think a lot of that will drop off in the next couple of years. Also, as enforcement starts to become mandatory federally for AMCs, and the AMCs will have to have fingerprints and background checks of their owners. There will either be a lot of voluntary surrenders or revocations of AMC operations, or significant litigation costs for AMCs. Have had less litigation costs and less enforcement costs for AMCs currently. A few formal hearings, but I don't think we've seen anything yet in comparison to what we're going to see in the future, within the next 5 years.
It's a frustrating component of the structure of the way that this is done. I mean, the only way that we can access this money would be to run you in the red, and if we run you in the red for 2 years back to back, then you're up for sunset and possibly to go away. And so it's our responsibility to make sure that we don't run you in the red. Again, I think there's a legitimate argument to make. If we go over to the legislature and they say, well, why do you have $1.1 million in your reserve account? It is a legitimate argument that it would have been irresponsible to reduce your fee given the last 5 years and the business that you were in. And it's certainly, as the chairman said, with the coming changes in 15, again, those are good justifications to hold the line. Or when we feel like you've got information now where you feel comfortable in proposing a fee reduction, that's great. I very much sympathize with all of you. I would love to be able to pass raises along to every member of your staff. I think they earn them. I do think, though, that the governor recognizes that and is doing everything that he can do. We've had more raises in the past 3 years than I think they had in the past decade. And probably, I may be misspeaking, but I think a 6.5% raise across the board is probably unprecedented. I don't know that there's ever been one. And that was primarily a result of the salary study that they did that told them we are not paying people what they can go get in the private sector, and if we want to keep the best and the brightest, we're going to have to do that. And I think you'll continue to see more salary adjustments in the future. I know that they're continuing to do salary studies, and we very much recognize that all we have is people. That's what we have, and if we can't keep the best, we're not going to be the best.
Thank you. What else do you have for us?
That's about it. Again, I just can't say enough that you guys are doing a great job. Your guys are doing a great job, and if all my programs were as easy to manage as this one, I could come in late and leave early. So we appreciate you. As I said, we're going to do this every year. Once we get our final numbers in and come before you and good, bad, or ugly, tell you what it was like and let you know what we're doing. You're certainly free to call anytime about any questions that you have. We're here for you, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for the information.
Thank you.
In the director's report then, gave a brief summary of the ARROW on item number 1. The ASC provided updates on the policy statements for our upcoming performance audit, which will be not this January, but the next January, which will coincide with our changes for 2015. So as if there wasn't enough going on, right as the changes for 2015 are going to get audited at the same time. The foundation gave a USPAP course for regulators. That was awful fun, wasn't it, Mr. Green?
It was informative. It
like
really was.
It's like watching paint dry.
I got a free copy of USPAP.
It's so good, and I got my copy autographed by 3 members of.
Really?
I did.
An original.
That's great.
That's awesome.
I did not get mine autographed.
Oh,
Yeah.
can I see it sometime? Can I just,
Can we touch it?
or is it here?
Oh.
Is it?
Can we touch it?
No, I do it for my dad every year. I get an autographed USPAP, or every other year I get an autographed USPAP book for my
I
dad.
bet he frames them.
He takes it to his class every year, geeks out. It's pretty cool. The link on the report should take you to the video on the e-library if you want to sit there and watch it yourself. Some of the significant updates, they eliminated standards rules 4 and 5 on sorry, mine blanked out. That's how good it was. And
Consulting, wasn't it?
Consulting,
Yeah.
appraisal consulting, and they changed the reporting options to 2 reporting options instead of 3. No longer complete or self-contained summary and restricted use. It's now just appraisal report and restricted report. There's a session on background checks, which included 3 different perspectives on should be implementation, not implantation, or whatever, of this requirement, and identified some of the possible gaps. Oops, typo. When screening someone's history. There are also 2 different types on breakout sessions. This was kind of a controversial session. There was also kind of a freak out moment when the subcommittee people said that they expected that everyone, including reciprocal people, should get background checks, which a lot of states got really riled up about. There was a breakout session for round robin on 3 different topics: experience training, appraisal review, and issues affecting regulatory agencies. There was an AMC complaint investigation session. There's a very interesting session given by a chief investigator and attorney from North Carolina on preparing a complaint for hearing. And during the business session, I was elected president-elect of ARROW.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm going to serve in that role for 1 year before I will be president, and that will be when they come here for Nashville. For all of you involved in professional appraisal organizations, I would really like it if you get your organizations involved, because we want all of them to attend the ARROW session. Individuals can't come to ARROW, but organizations can. So if they register under an organization, they can attend ARROW. I mean, you guys can all come under the appraisal commission, so you all get your opportunity to come to an appraisal ARROW meeting. At the last commission meeting, you all requested additional information on distance education and the proposed language that was included in the January 2012 rulemaking hearing on distance education. I attached it to this in your iPad. That's just after the education report. We can talk about. If you turn to page 26 of 140 on your iPad. It says page 20 on the rules, but if on your iPad document, it says page 26 of 140. Arts. Much of this language was drafted by Dr. Barilla originally. And then Amina Saunders, the previous board counsel,
This will come up in our next rulemaking session. If the commission votes to consider this language, we can include this language in our next rulemaking change. Is that the upshot of this?
that's what you vote today. We'll include it in the next rulemaking hearing.
Those page numbers again, Nicole?
You're in the rules. It says page 20 on the, it starts on page 20 and then it's underlined. It says course guidelines and it starts at letter C where it's underlined. It says distance education means the educational process in which the instruction does not take place in a traditional classroom setting, but rather through other media or non-conventional methods which a teacher and student are separated by distance, and sometimes the course provides interaction. And then next page it goes down to different types, requires IDEC approval. (22) for distance education. It has the proctor requirement, proctored by an individual pursuant to 1 below or conducted at a proctored testing facility pursuant to 2 below.
Would you say that this rule is written in a way that it more or less mirrors other states that have had this in place for some time?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
Does this rule allow qualifying education by distance learning?
Yes.
That's pretty much what it's about, I think. It's all about just QE via distance methods. Mr. Johnstone?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Avers, you had mentioned that if we vote to or move on or take some type of action in reference to this QE today, it's not the entire rules making, it's not the entire body of rules. It would just be the QE portion starting under Rule 1255-2-04, course guidelines? Or are you saying we approve, or would it be the entire? Because I know if you go back on some of the other pages under foreign education, there's some underlying areas in other portions of this document. So are we just acting on the continuing education, the QE only, or the entire document?
There was a rulemaking hearing held in January of 2012. Other portions of those rules were approved.
Right.
Those rules have been pending in the Attorney General's office since that time and have not yet made it to the effective rules.
So those underlying portions in other areas of the document are already at the AG's office?
Other sections were approved and are still waiting in the Attorney General's office.
We're strictly just dealing with the QE portion only?
This section contains mostly language about QE, but there is a portion allowing for 100% CE too. If you look at the top of page, 21.
Yep.
At the top, letter A. 3A.
So
It allows them to take 100% online QE, is how that language
CE,
reads.
isn't it, CE?
Yeah, I mean CE, sorry. Currently,
And continuing, actually,
Oh, you're right, continuing and qualifying
and
education.
qualifying, I'm sorry.
Yep.
That's the change.
But this is not the hearing.
this is not the hearing. It was
this would
just
be a
whether or not the
vote to
commission would endorse it or not
Right.
to go into another rulemaking hearing. The rulemaking hearing is the point at which it publicly endorsed. If you want it to be included in the next rulemaking hearing documents, it's a lot of work to draft rules. So if it's not going to be the commission's intent to even include them, I'm sure and many hours drafting them if the commission doesn't
Go
want
ahead,
them
Mr.
anyway.
Johnstone. Sure.
it appears that they've already been drafted. I mean,
Right.
It looks like a cut and paste. It doesn't look like many hours at this point. But if I read this correctly, we're talking about one rule specifically. If there was a motion to incorporate it in, and it would be to amend and replace Rule 1255-2-04, and that's it. There's no other. The rest of them have already been had a hearing on them, and they're at the AG's office. So that's the only one I see, because at the end of once you go into the new section, you're under fees. So maybe you might, and it runs from the mid to the top of page 20 through basically the section called fees on page 23. Is that correct or not?
I would
Where it's
say,
underlined.
it looks like it goes down through the top paragraph of 24. I think you want to include the fees section as well, don't you?
Well, that's a different rule.
Oh, it
It's
is,
not,
okay.
and those have already been, according to Director Avers, those are already at the AG's office. We're talking strictly about CE and QE at this point.
May want to verify that. You might, if there
Right.
was a motion, you might want to make it with enough latitude that it would include sections that aren't already at the AG's office.
But what I would move that
Now, is this a motion?
this is a motion.
Okay.
I would move that we move forward in the process of a rules hearing to amend and add to our existing rules, Rule 1255-2-.04, which is in reference to courts, guidelines, and qualifying education and continuing education, that we would approve that with the latitude to approve any other areas within the existing rules that may overlap and be a part of or akin to that particular rule.
Everyone hear that motion?
I'll second.
A motion from Commissioner Johnstone and a second from Commissioner Collinsworth to include the language in the rulemaking session to reflect these changes on pages 20 through 23, excluding the last section, which is fees.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I make that motion and to get this on the floor for discussion, and because I would like to hear what the other commissioners have to say in regards to moving in this direction, how it impacts our state, how it impacts our ability in other states, because we are one of the last dinosaurs, and do we want to stay there? Is that a good thing or bad?
Thank you for the motion.
I'd like to hear other.
We have a
comments.
motion and a second on the floor, on the table. Discussion from commissioners.
I think we need to pass this. I think we need to.
Point. Speak into your microphone so we can hear what you think.
I said I think we need to have our rulemaking hearing and move forward and be in line with the rest.
You do not want to remain a dinosaur.
That's right.
Thank you.
I'd like to be a
T-Rex.
pterodactyl.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Hall.
I had an opportunity to read over all the information that's provided concerning online education versus traditional classroom instruction, the courses where they also told us what the course was about and how they did their statistical analysis of the results, and it's a mixed bag. Some said it was great, some said they didn't see any difference at all. I'm a dinosaur, and I'll admit it, and I'm proud of it. I don't go to change very easy. I have to see where it's really going to be beneficial to the people involved. One of the comments made by a letter we'll read later on today indicated they don't want to hear war stories, they don't want to hear about that dog going hunting and things of that nature, and I think that's great. And that person evidently will do better with online education. The people that I've had an opportunity to work with who've had nothing but and have told me they like online education better, I've found are narrow-minded, that can go by the book very well, but you get them outside that book, they don't have a clue what you're talking about. I just can't believe that you can get all the education you need by sitting and looking at a screen and reading without getting out and learning. Our learned attorneys that we have in our office probably did not begin learning until they got out and started dealing in the real world and dealing with people. They had a great basic education. I'm sure of that. I'm sure they're much better attorneys now than the day when they walked out of that classroom. Just like I think we're all better appraisers today than we walked out of that classroom. I just do not believe that the educational process has advanced to the point where anybody can tell me unequivocally, without any doubt, that you can learn as much by reading a book as you can by interacting with people and reading the book. That's my comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Hall. Any other comments from commissioners?
I have one question. My understanding, and if I'm wrong, I'd like legal to chime in on this. This does not preclude traditional education. This is just an additional option.
That's my understanding.
That's my understanding. Well, that's correct. It does not it does not deny the opportunity for someone to take classroom education. Also, this does not at all eliminate the experience requirement. So every applicant would have a minimum of 2 years experience requirement with a certified appraiser and at least 2,000 hours of experience for the license level, 2,500 for certified residential, 3,000 for certified general. Education and experience are two separate components. So I don't think that saying that, you know, the education portion, you know, learning from one part of your appraisal part from a computer setting is going to eliminate that portion where you go out into the real world and learn from an appraiser. That component is still there because there is an experience requirement to go out into the real world and learn from an appraiser. And yeah, I was requested very specifically by a very adamant licensee that he wanted me to read this letter today. It does seem like the apropos moment to do it.
Ms. Avers?
Yes?
Let's ask the commissioners if they've read the letter in order to save you time.
Okay,
we have the letter. Does everyone have the letter from Mr. Browning in front of them?
Yes.
Okay, has everyone had the opportunity to read it?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Mr. Johnstone has not had this opportunity,
But
so
I can read it in 3 minutes.
no.
Okay.
In that case, we want Ms. Avers to read it. Go ahead, Ms. Avers.
All right. Since online education for continuing education, even USPAP update courses are approved and to many have shown to be more effective than a classroom where much time is spent telling war stories, not learning. Many appraisers think it would be better for appraisers who already have a license to be able to take online courses for all education, including qualify education. The online course has a simple advantage. If you don't get the material, which should be the reason for the education, you are required to back up and go over the material till you learn it. It is still processed by your mind, not just repeating what you heard 4 times during class on a test. You can print out anything you need for your files. The quizzes are normally what you need to know to apply the material from your course to everyday appraisal practice, and this helps the appraisers understand and stay within the laws. Once you printed the material, it can be filed for easy use and not have to go back and read a book from the classroom, since hearing it 4 times during class really didn't process in the brain's logic, just stored it in short-term memory and try to find what applies to the work the appraiser is completing on any given day. I myself prefer online courses since you can pick from more choices and work additional courses into my business, and you don't waste 25% of the time with classroom class, driving back and forth and listening to someone in class tell about how their dog performed during the bear hunt last weekend. What can be done to change this rule so that qualifying education for appraisers, which already have a license, can take all their education online? Both qualifying and continuing online classes are more effective, and if all classes could be taken online, more appraisers would be taking extra classes since they don't waste so much time on a classroom course. Extra online courses would also generate a more informed and educated appraiser. This is not a bad result. Thank you, Mr. Browning.
We've heard comments from commissioners. Would any other commissioners that haven't yet spoken like to address this before we put it to a vote?
Question, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Standiford.
What we're debating here is to put this forth for a public hearing, per se.
Yes.
So there is no predetermined solution at this point, other than we're going to have a public hearing and get input?
And the public would still have an opportunity to weigh in on this, any rules that were proposed at a public hearing. It would not be final until the board voted to move forward, and then it still, of course, has to go through the Attorney General's, Secretary of State's office, and then 90 days wait before it becomes effective.
So,
For clarification, this language, Commissioner Stanifer, this exact language was in our last rulemaking language, and we ended up removing it, and that set of rules went up and is still pending approval by the AG's office. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
so the rules that are up there pending approval have this language in it?
They do not.
Oh.
Last time it was voted down.
These were removed after we heard from public comments. These in
How long
2000,
ago?
that was
that
in
a couple of
2012.
years ago?
Yes, 2012. January of 2012 to be exact.
Wrong with having a public hearing and getting public input, but I determine ideas about how this should be, which that's fine too, but you know, I don't have any problem with having a public hearing.
Okay.
I'd kind of like to explore the option of maybe doing a public survey and seeing if we could get we have more technology available to us than we've had in the past. And I'm going to see if our IT department might have the ability to send out like one of those
Survey
surveys
monkey.
where the licensees could maybe weigh in with a yes or no, or maybe just get a poll on how many people would benefit from for both one question CE, one question QE, just see what the consensus is. If it isn't what the people want,
Give the
it's
people
fine.
what they want.
Well, if 90% of the people really want it, maybe yeah.
Well,
If it's like a 10% holdout, I hear a lot of
Johnstone.
people complain about this, and
It's-
all of the surrounding states.
we all have.
This
We've
is,
all heard.
this is my last question, hopefully, on this topic. Not Arkansas, the two of our largest states, Florida and New York, are making this change. Is that right? I think I
Yes.
noticed that in your.
It's in the
your
minutes.
report, I thought.
That's correct.
And,
It's on the-
and that Texas at this time allows some. So at that point, I was looking to see which were the big states that were still out there. And really, we're probably one of the largest states, I guess, that's not doing some type of online.
For what
Just a
it's worth,
statement. I mean, that's not a.
I tend to agree with Mr. Hall to a large degree. However, there are people at classes, conventional classes, that don't embrace, much like Mr. Browning's letter alludes to. There are people that attend classes because they have to, and they do not embrace their ability or their opportunity to come away with, the value add from real life experiences. So I'm not sure that segment is ever going to benefit from having live classes. There's always that segment. So I think the technology's changed, and I think the supervisory and the oversight has changed enough. This organization, IDEC, at Aero sessions that I attended, I eavesdropped on providers bellyaching about IDEC's oversight. IDEC's oversight is intense, and they don't like it, but it really keeps a lot of the studies that Dr. Barilla provided us talk about where the gaps and the holes are and who tends to excel and who doesn't. And I think a lot of IDEC's oversight address those problems. So that's my 2 cents. We've had our discussion. There's a motion on the table, and there's been a second. And the motion was to incorporate these rule changes in our next rulemaking hearing. So we've had a motion and a second. We've had discussion, and so it's time for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed?
No.
Commissioner Hall's opposed. So the motion carries, and this language will be in our next rulemaking session. That session, that rulemaking hearing will start when, Director Avers? Is that January?
Should be soon. I don't know if it'll be January, but it should be soon.
Okay. So next 2 or 3 meetings?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
To a draft as soon as we are able.
I have a couple of comments regarding Arrow. I can be very, very brief, but we may not be done with the director's report.
Oh, that was the conclusion of my report. Thank you.
Okay. Y'all had asked me, and this may not be the proper time during the meeting to address these, but you asked me to query Arrow participants as to how they're dealing with the matrix. Remember how we had the debate about education and respondents being asked to get their education into the matrix and get it approved, and how difficult all that was. So I did. I asked other appraisal regulators how they're dealing with that matrix issue and navigating the matrix. And their answer was pretty much unanimously, they're on their own. The feds changed the rules. There's this matrix now, and they've got to comply. And they have not hired additional personnel to help these people. They've basically said, look, the rules changed, and you can either comply and fill out the matrix or not. So that was overwhelmingly what I learned at the Arrow conference, such as it is. And I queried probably 5 different states. The biggest was North Carolina. And I wanted to get their feedback. They seem to have a well-run appraisal commission. So that's that result. Seems like there's another comment from Arrow, but I can't think what it is, so I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you for your director's report, Ms. Avers. Next item on the agenda is to review and approve the October commission meeting minutes. Has the commission had a chance to look at those, and do I hear a motion?
I move to approve the October 2013 minutes.
I second.
A motion from Commissioner Johnstone, a second from Commissioner Point. Any discussion? No? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, motion passes. The next item on the agenda is the report of the experience interviews, and I'm first on that list. So at this time, I'll turn the meeting over to Commissioner Johnstone for his conduct of the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This time we're looking at the experience reports. Commissioner Green, do you have a report?
I do, sir. Thank you. I interviewed a gentleman by the name of Brett Mansfield, who is a certified residential practicing in the Mount Juliet area. He has requested an upgrade from certified residential to certified general, and I found his work product to be satisfactory to grant the upgrade, and would recommend that a motion be made to upgrade his licensure.
You've heard the committee recommendation for the approval of Mr. Mansfield. Do we have a motion and a second for approval of certified residential to certified general.
So moved.
Second.
It was a motion from Mr. Collins, Commissioner Collinsworth, seconded by, sorry,
Stand for action.
Commissioner Standiford, seconded by Commissioner Hall. Any discussion in reference to the recommendation? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Recommendation approved.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnstone. Next item on the agenda is Commissioner Hall's interview with Jeffrey Todd Sims. Commissioner Hall?
Yes, I interviewed Mr. Sims this morning. He's from Knoxville, and he's going from trainee to certified residential. I recommend approval.
Heard the recommendation for approval. Do I hear a motion?
Move to approve Mr. Swims to certified residential.
Second.
Okay. Motion to approve by Mr. Johnstone, a second by Commissioner Collinsworth. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Commissioner Johnstone had 2 interviews. The first one was Mr. Richard Fowler.
Yes, I had an opportunity to interview Mr. Richard Fowler. This was his second bite at the apple. He had been requested to submit 2 more reports that incorporated a little bit more detailed highest and best use analysis, as well as a sales comparison approach and income approach in the same report. He did submit those, and I had an opportunity to review them. And at this time, I'll make a recommendation for approval.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Johnstone. We've had a recommendation. Do I hear a motion for approval?
moved.
Motion from Commissioner Hall, a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Point. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Commissioner Johnstone regarding Mark Thomas Haley.
Yes, I had an opportunity to interview Mr. Mark Thomas Haley, trainee number 4652. He is requesting to go from a trainee to a licensed appraiser. I'm sorry, trainee to certified residential appraiser. He comes from a long line of appraisers, grandfather and father, and anyway, I grilled him pretty good on it, and of course, I'm waiting for Nicole to laugh, but that's an inside joke. I'll leave it at that. Anyway, he tended to have a pretty good grasp and concept of appraisal methodology, and I would make recommendation to approve the upgrade at this time.
Okay, we have a recommendation to approve the upgrade. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Commissioner Hall, second from Commissioner Standifer. All those, well, any conversation or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, thank you, Commissioner Johnstone. Commissioner Collinsworth, the first candidate you spoke with was Mr. Clarence Martin.
Clarence Martin, and Mr. Martin had applied to move from trainee to licensed appraiser. His current number is trainee number 4100. The interview was satisfactory. His work met the requirements in order for him to be able to do so. And at this time, I would recommend that we move to allow Mr. Martin to move from trainee to a licensed appraiser status.
Commission's heard a recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
Move to approve committee recommendation.
Second.
Okay. Motion to approve and a second. Any conversation? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Motion carries. Commissioner Collinsworth, you interviewed second Steve Carey Gregory.
Yes, and this was my second meeting with Mr. Gregory. After our meeting in October, he had sent in 3 additional appraisals to have them reviewed, and upon looking at those, Gregory moved from licensed to a certified residential status.
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Hall, second by Commissioner Johnstone. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Commissioner Collinsworth. Commissioner
Just a point
Point.
of
How about Mr.
clarification.
Martin?
I'm sorry, just a point of clarification. The approvals are just for their experience, not to upgrade. Just a point of clarification. You're not moving to upgrade them, you're moving. Yeah.
Sorry.
It's
Yeah.
okay, I just wanted
Very
to-
good clarification, yeah.
Well, it
Because they have to complete the test in
says
order for
upgrade
them to be
request, so
actually
that's- I
obtaining
mean,
the credentials.
Right.
I mean, that's
And many of,
approve the
sometimes
request
they
upgrade.
don't.
That's,
Based on
could argue it either way.
approval of the exam,
Right,
passing the
they have to
exam.
finish the test.
If you wouldn't mind, change that column heading to experience requested. And that way we won't make that mistake again. So it's not really an upgrade requested, it's an experience requested.
Because it's,
The clarification you just made is well taken, but while you're buzzing through the meeting, it's easy to read the word upgrade and
Okay.
to recite that.
Maybe I should just try type of application. The application is for certified residentials or certified general or state licensed, and a component of it is the experience. Some of them have taken the test and some of them haven't.
Johnstone?
Mr. Chairman, thank you, sir. I think it's just, I think it's very important that we know what they're transitioning from or requesting to transition from. And then when you look at that, it says upgrade requested. So when you're making a motion, for example, Mr. Mansfield has requested an upgrade from CR to CG, and you've reviewed his experience and you approve it. I mean, if upgrade is not the correct terminology, then that needs to be taken out and just say an experience upgrade, or is his experience adequate to allow for this transfer of licensing? Because it technically is an upgrade. Now, whether he's passed the exam or not, you're approving the experience for the upgrade. So,
I think if you just, we can try it, and this is in flux, just take out the word upgrade.
Okay.
And put something else, and that way we won't use that terminology and you won't have to chastise us.
Okay, no chastisement. I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure the motions were clear.
Gonna ask for a break here in just a second, but I think I'm gonna be okay. All right.
What happened to Clarence Martin? Chairman? Huh? He
We
was
got the
approved.
motion in the
Okay,
second.
I'm sorry. I thought we were dealing with Gregory. Huh?
We
Give Mr. Martin's first, and
Okay.
then Mr. Gregory's.
Okay. Apologize.
It was my interruption. I apologize.
All right, so we have voted on both Mr. Martin and Mr. Gregory, have we not?
Yes.
Okay, so those were both approved for their experience upgrade. Commissioner Point, moving along to your interview with Mr. or Ms. Allen.
I would recommend that we approve the experience credits for Mr. Stanton Allen.
Okay, we have a recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, motion and a second from Mr. Hall. Motion was from Mr. Collinsworth. We do have discussion, and this is from Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Chairman, for a point of clarification, is this an upgrade or is this an experience?
From trainee to license.
I guess we could just say, based on exam approval. Maybe that would make it.
Well stated.
Could you reread the motion, please? No, you
For
don't
the
have to.
experience credits for Mr. Stanton Allen.
That sufficiently answer your question, Commissioner Johnston?
I think so.
Yeah,
Thank you,
okay.
Mr. Chairman.
We want you to be very clear here. All right, so we've had a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none and refusing to recognize Mr. Johnstone, even if there was any. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Commissioner Point, your interview with Frederick White.
I would recommend that we approve his experience credits.
Motion to approve.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Commissioner Stanifer, you interviewed William Joshua Stevens.
I recommend that Mr. Stevens' experience be approved.
Recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
So move.
Motion to approve. A second.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Point. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes. Commissioner Stanifer, regarding John Norton.
Interviewed Mr. Norton and recommend that his experience be approved.
Hear a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second from Commissioner Hall. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes. Okay. Last item is a request for a waiver from a Mr. Vernil. Is that how you pronounce that?
Close enough for me.
Your packet has a letter from Joe.
Yes.
Has everyone had a chance to read the letter? Has Commissioner Johnstone had a chance to read the letter? Everyone else has had a chance?
Oh, yes, I'm good.
Okay, all right. Do I hear a motion? This is a request, let me read it into the record. This is a request from Clarence Joseph Vernil Jr. for a waiver of his second experience interview, as he was previously interviewed in September of 2012. And he's requesting this in regard to experience for an eventual hopeful upgrade from certified residential to certified general. I would entertain a motion or discussion. A motion and then discussion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve this request. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a second from Commissioner Point. Now discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Excellent. Before we move on, I want to thank the commissioners. This was a heavy workload. I know it took considerable time and energy, and we're grateful. I mean, this is a lot of work. Thank you all, especially at this time of year. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the education report. However, I'm wondering if the commission would like a quick break. Yeah, let's take a quick 5 and take a break, and we'll stand adjourned for 5 minutes.
Well, the education and then the no, wait, well, that, it's not showing up on the agenda. Oh, yeah. There's an application review, legal report, and education.
I think I'll go fast.
Application review, didn't we just see it?
I think I'll go fast.
All right, we're back in session. This is the December 9th meeting of the Tennessee Real Estate Appraisal Commission, and we're back from our break. We are now down to the portion of the agenda where we talk about education, and since Dr. Barilla is not present, we will ask Executive Director Avers to present that. Please.
Okay. Dr. Barilla provided a written report, which I have included on your iPads. He recommended for all of the course approvals except 1703, the ASFMRA course 1703, succession and estate planning, because it does not appear from the course content to be an appraisal topic. And for individual course approvals, that would be for Ms. Nicole Avers and Mr. Michael Green for the Aero Conference. I've requested 14 hours of continuing education, and Mr. Green requested 10.75 hours of continuing education. Dr. Barilla broke down the credit hours from the agendas for each based on attendance of the sessions below. And the last thing is the instructor approval for a Lynn Hayden, and he recommended approval for that.
This require a vote, so he recommends that
Recommended approval for all of them except for course 1703. I just included all as one vote.
We could make a
As
motion
written.
accepting his recommendations without specifying.
As one, yeah.
without- Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a recommendation. We accept Dr. Barella's report.
Could you restate that in the form of a motion?
I move that we accept Dr. Barella's recommendations.
Thank you.
Second.
Here a second from Commissioner Stanifer. The motion was made by Commissioner Hall. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Well, I did object to Mr. Green getting that.
Hearing none, the motion passes.
A loopy this month.
I should note that I did not vote. I abstained from that vote. Okay. Moving along. That was the education report. Just pretend that you had a delicious and satisfying lunch, since we won't be taking a lunch break.
Jimmy John's.
Yeah. Delicious, was it not?
It was fantastic.
I'm not sure if Counselor Baird would like to address the character question application first, or do the legal report first. It's up to her.
I want to save the best for last.
It sounds like a song.
Frederick Weber White, who also had an experience interview this morning.
Excuse me, just a second. Commissioner Hall?
Mr. C need to address us?
Thank you, Jesse. I'm sorry. I should have asked you if you wanted to go first. So whatever.
I happened to see you sitting. I just didn't want you to.
I just have one small matter, but I'm in no hurry.
Well, let's deal with that. If you don't mind, Ms. Avers, let's hear from Mr. Joseph and allow him to address the commission, and that way he can be most efficient in the carrying out of his.
Yes.
There we go. Excellent. Yes.
Thank you, members of the commission. I have one matter for you, and we have disseminated a supplemental legal report for litigated matters with one case that was distributed to you all earlier this morning. What happened here was that the respondent had a complaint that was filed against her in 2011, and that is that 2011 case number. That complaint was filed by an AMC regarding a particular subject property and the appraisal that was done as of a. That complaint was reviewed, and it did result in a signed consent order, and that consent order was entered in April. Required her to complete certain corrective education. Last year, June of 2012, a second complaint filed against the respondent by a different complainant, which probably made it difficult by the lender in this case regarding the same appraisal, the same effective date, the same subject property. That newer complaint was inadvertently processed and reviewed, and it resulted in a newer proposed third complaint, which is an unrelated complaint, which there is no respondent did not accept the 2013 proposed consent order this year, and both of the newer complaints. I then prepared a notice of hearing and charges based upon the last two complaints, and the respondent then questioned me, saying how could she be disciplined 2 times on the same property. That then triggered for me the need to go and obtain an actual signed copy of her prior disciplinary history, and I did obtain a signed copy of that April 2012 consent order, and I was correct. She had been disciplined in that previous order for USPAP violations committed in that subject appraisal report. In essence, we can't discipline a respondent twice for the same conduct that's already been adjudicated. She was disciplined in April 2012 for that particular property. That required me to amend the notice of hearing and charges. I then had to strike those previous allegations, which I could not go forward on because of res judicata. And since leaves me with one legitimate complaint within the notice of hearing and charges. The respondent has indicated to me by telephone last week that she is amenable, although she'd have to read it first, settling the pending notice of hearing and charges for voluntary revocation of her Tennessee credential and for payment of I am requesting the board or the commission to give me authority to offer her that proposed agreed final order, which would voluntarily revoke. Opportunity to determine whether or not she wants to accept it. If she does want to accept it, we can get the case over with. If she doesn't want to accept it,
Thank you, counsel. Does anyone have questions of Mr. Joseph? Or if not, would someone like to make a motion in regard to Mr. Joseph's request?
I have a question.
Okay, Commissioner Point.
Has she already agreed to the revocation of license? And
verbally, but I can't bind her to that in as much as she's going to.
Other questions? Do I hear a motion?
Make a motion, we accept Mr. Joseph's recommendation.
Second.
Motion to accept from Commissioner Hall, a second from Commissioner Johnstone. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed, motion carries. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. And you.
Sir.
All right, I'm sorry, Director Avers, you were beginning to talk to us about the character question application.
All right. Mr. Frederick Weber White is applying to become a certified residential appraiser. He's already conducted an experience interview with Ms. Point this morning. He also checked yes to character question 3 on the application, which reads, have you ever been convicted of, pled guilty, or pled no contest to any criminal offense, or is there any criminal charge now pending against you? His application contained details of 5 separate charges from 2005 to 2007 that include possession of beer by a minor, unlawful use of an ID card, driving under the influence, and possession of an open container. While processing his application, staff noticed that Mr. White had not revealed this information in his earlier trainee application of 2011, which contains a similar character declaration page. Mr. White has explained this discrepancy in a letter to the commission. He misinterpreted the character history question earlier, since his offenses were misdemeanors and not serious felony offenses. He did not remember how he answered the character questions on his trainee application when making the more recent application. He stated that due to the gravity of becoming certified, he took the questions more seriously, and he is since working with Starkville Municipal Court to have his convictions expunged from his record. I've included the letter he wrote to you in your application, in your iPads for your review.
So this
And
is,
pardon me,
No,
Chairman
no.
Green, what are we being asked to do?
Any applicant who has a character question, you have the ability to approve or deny their application. So it's up to the commission's discretion as to whether or not their character is sufficiently merits approval of their application.
to review, so Mr. White has asked to be upgraded to a certified residential, and he's met all the requirements. Now, what with the experience review today,
And I think he still has to do the exam.
okay, so he has not yet passed the exam, but this character issue has come to light in that staff notice, this felony.
It's not a felony.
Well, he admits that they're felony offenses.
No, they're misdemeanors.
I'm sorry.
That's my question.
I sit
Once we get to this.
corrected. Yeah. Okay, so question, Commissioner Johnstone?
Ms. Avers, I probably should know this, what is the actual question on the character? How does it read?
It reads, have you ever been convicted of, pled guilty, or pled no contest to any criminal offense? Or is there any criminal charge now pending against you?
Is that a criminal charge
that's-
to drink beer?
Well, see, that's my question, Mr. Chairman,
Hall.
is we've got,
Take it easy.
if it's considered a misdemeanor, a traffic ticket is a misdemeanor. And I've had a traffic ticket and I didn't check that. And we've got some pending litigation in Madison County where these are actually issues that are at bay, whether or not somebody's going to plead down to a misdemeanor so they can, keep away from the felony charges. So, I guess my question is, if it's a misdemeanor, then I'm not sure that's a criminal activity. And so I'm not sure that checking yes or no, that would be something to have some clear guidance on. But I almost feel weird about penalizing this guy in this situation. That's just
Also,
my take.
Just as a side note, in the statutes under 6239-316, which is grounds for denial of a certificate, says the commission may deny the issuance of a certificate as a state licensed or certified real estate appraiser to an applicant who has been convicted of a felony or on any of the grounds enumerated in this chapter. So
What are the other grounds
technically,
enumerated?
it calls for an actual conviction. However, there's the caveat that says any other grounds enumerated in this chapter, so
Are those?
that's sort of a catch-all. It would be difficult to
How is that
say,
I don't see how that's a catch-all when it doesn't even list what they are.
right, well, it could be anything in any of our statutes that we have that you think is, but I understand what you're saying
I think
about the
I think it's
misdemeanor,
overreaching. That's just me.
which is probably why it states the conviction portion of the statute.
That's why it's here before the commission, is so that you can,
Not that I condone underage drinking, that's not the point. But that's, yeah. Okay, thank you.
other commissioners, Commissioner Hall, did you have a comment?
Only thing thing I can say is that with the grace of God goes probably everybody sitting on this commission. Therefore, I would strongly recommend that we approve this gentleman. And
Are there other comments, or would someone like to make a motion? Or was that a motion? Would you like to make a motion?
yeah, I think there was a motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, so what was the motion again, Commissioner Hall?
The motion was to allow him to move forward and to
Okay, so the motion is to allow the applicant to move ahead and not let this discrepancy in his two applications hurt him. Is that what you're seconding?
That's what I'm seconding, and I would
Okay.
like to.
Discussion? Go ahead.
Had the applicant checked no on that, and then it was brought to our attention later, he could easily argue it was a misdemeanor, it was not a felony, therefore I didn't have to, I mean, so. would be my thought.
You view it as not really,
Well, I view it, if I get a traffic ticket, then I'm gonna have to put, I got a traffic ticket down on there.
right?
So maybe we can write an article about if you get convicted of jaywalking or traffic or anything, you better put it on your application. I'm making a facetious point, but.
Thank you.
Well, this just goes to a very, very real part of the rulemaking that's pending. The next rules have a lot of issues that are going to need to be very specific in the rules on what grounds the commission may deny an applicant, because it's no longer going to be okay to go catch-all, especially when dealing with these FBI criminal background checks and character question issues. There are additional requirements in the AQB criteria that the commission must evaluate people on, and you have to decide whether or not these criteria are going to be grounds to deny someone. So I would encourage you to lay it out in the rules when we do rulemaking, exactly what will be deniable and what will not be deniable. You know, it should be very, very clear in the rules. Misdemeanor,
Felony.
5 years old.
If anything, it's just going to make it easier for you
Yeah.
to be more specific.
Draw the
Because right now it
specific
says any-
line in the sand.
You know, right now, it kind of in addition to what Mr. Johnstone had said, is getting a little more leeway on what a criminal offense is. Are we going to consider that a felony or just a misdemeanor, or where we go? Because one of the four charges I did see was driving under the influence, and that is a little more severe than, you know, unlawful use of an ID card or possession of beer by a minor. You know,
I guess in my mind, it would come back to, was he actually convicted of that? And if there was no conviction, whether or not there was a
Right.
charge,
correct.
a conviction takes precedence over a charge.
Totally
And
different
I'm not a
thing.
lawyer, but I have slept at a Holiday Inn Express.
And if it's been expunged, if it's been expunged from his records, who's going to know about it anyway?
I think it said he was in the process of getting it expunged, but it had not yet been
Call for
expunged.
question.
All right, we have a call for a question. Call for the question. Do I hear a second for ending this discussion? Have a second from Commissioner Johnstone. So, is there any further discussion on this issue? There's not. All right. So we have a motion, or do we?
We got a motion on the second.
We have a
on
motion
the-
and a second. We've ended our
on the
discussion.
question.
Yes.
Got to vote on that.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, hearing none. Motion passes. It's,
Now you got to vote on that. That was on the question.
okay, so that was only on the question.
It was on cease and debate.
That was on ceasing the debate. All right, thank you, Commissioner Johnstone. I appreciate that. Yeah. Okay, now we'll vote on the motion itself, apparently. So the motion was to allow this gentleman to move forward and not let the discrepancies in his application affect his progress. It's been moved, it's been seconded. We've voted to end discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes.
Chairman Green,
Commissioner Hall?
did I understand you correct, Nicole, when you said that we're going to have to be very specific in our rules making?
Rulemaking. I didn't bring the AQB criteria with me to this meeting, but there are additional criteria the commission has to consider in the 2015 background issues that you will have to consider. You're going to not only have to consider their criminal history, but other offenses. So if we're going to have a statute that says the commission can deny, and then we're going to have rules that very clearly identify which things will be deal killers, essentially.
Yeah.
Like
Otherwise,
you're
there's
in,
no-
you're out.
Okay, because I was, you know, number one, I am very much opposed to the government coming up with specifics as to what I can and can't do. Very much opposed to them saying, you get a speeding ticket, that's a felony, and you're going to ruin your whole career. Well, I've had a speeding ticket. Mark just said he's had one. I don't think that makes us bad appraisers because we had a, quote, speeding ticket. I don't think it makes us a bad appraiser if we had a beer when we were 18 or 19 years old under the limit of 21. You know, I think there are a lot of things out there that do not make a person a bad person simply because of these alleged incidents that might occur. And I would just kind of caution this commission to be careful about being so specific about everything, because I don't want the government eventually telling me how many breaths I have to take every minute or every second. And I just feel like that they get over intrusive into the lives of the American people.
Commissioner Hall, we appreciate and respect your opinion, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. I don't know that the AQB, we'll see what the AQB comes out with. Commissioner Standifer.
At your Arrow meeting, was there anything, did you learn anything about what may be behind this? Or was there any discussion, or did you get a feel for this issue at Arrow?
Well,
Could you share that with us?
it's
Well,
been
the
long before
overarching
that.
responsibility is to protect the public trust, but it's the requirements are not misdemeanors or speeding tickets or any of that. It's more the requirements for denying were like financial crimes. If you have been denied a mortgage license because of financial crimes, those type of things, that would be a reason to deny someone an appraiser license also. If you had been denied a broker license for mortgage crimes, you will probably also be denied an appraiser license. Those are the types of criteria that we're also that we're just going to have to spell out in order to meet them in the rules.
Do you have any states that have framework to look at?
I know there's a lot of states that are working on it currently. Kentucky is probably further along than we are. North Carolina is also a little further along than we are.
I think Oregon, is it
Oregon.
Oregon that's been doing background checks for years, and they may have model language. I don't know that it meets AQB criteria, Commissioner Standifer, but there are several states that have been doing the background checks and complying with FBI regs and all those sorts of things for years. And we should be able to get some model rules from some of those folks.
Oregon and Texas, Colorado.
I would be, to Commissioner Hall's point, I would be surprised believe it or not, I would be surprised if the rules were absurd. I really think that they'll address, moral turpitude sorts of issues and felony criminal activity, that sort of thing.
Child support.
Currently, we already have that. And actually, it's one of the few things where child support and non-payment of student loans, there's no due process through our office. I just get a notification and I have to suspend the license. Just.
So that's not up to this commission to put in the rules? It's already in our rules?
It's in
Or
the
it's in state
Tennessee
law?
State law.
TCA, and I just, your license is suspended.
Okay, so it's in the statute already.
Yeah.
So speak to your legislator if you have an issue with that, Commissioner Hall.
Come through this. It doesn't come through your office, through the board.
Because I know you let your child support.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks.
Well, if you guys want to get out before lunch, maybe
Is
we
that-
should,
Yeah, we're moving right along
moving
here.
right along.
Counselor Baird, would you like to launch into your legal report, please?
Okay, the first item is 2012021251. The complaint was filed by a consumer and alleged that respondent undervalued a historic farm property and also alleged a conflict of interest in the proposed sale of the property. Respondent responded to the complaint denying any conflict of interest in the matter and stated that much of the home is intact and in relatively good condition for its age. However, considering its size and the amount of work required to make it habitable and marketable, it was given no value in this report. For example, the home has only a few electric fixtures and outlets that would need to be rewired. There's only one very dated full bathroom in the entire home, which is on the first floor, and the kitchen is very dated with very old appliances. After considering all repair items and looking at sales of similar homes in the region, 50-plus years old and larger than 3,000 square feet, the dwelling was thought to offer some historic value. However, in its current state of neglect and disrepair, the dwelling was thought to offer little contributory value. The reviewer's conclusions are listed there. There's only 2 of those. And then respondent responded to the reviewer's conclusions, and that's also listed there. The reviewer found that the data included in the appraisal appeared accurate and relevant. The methods and techniques employed by respondent appeared to have been well documented and well supported, with adjustments reflecting acreage breakdowns consistent with available data. Overall, the reviewer found the appraisal report to be credible. Respondent has been licensed for about 10 years with no prior discipline. As such, counsel recommends closure of the matter with no further action. But you can take as much time as you need to read over that stuff.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
Okay, item number 2, 2013011111. This complaint was filed by the selling agent for the subject property and alleged it was the most unprofessional appraisal she had ever read. The sale was a conventional as-is sale, and complainant alleged respondent was requesting that many items be corrected on the property that wouldn't have been requested on an FHA or VA appraisal. Complainant alleged respondent made note of multiple cosmetic items for correction that should not have been on an appraisal. Respondent made note of items such as mold that he determined were in need of repair, and he gave dollar figures for these items even though he is not a mold inspector. Respondent filed a response stating he has been an appraiser for 23 years, and this is the first complaint he's had. Stated that his client is the lender, not the selling agent. Stated that at the time of the inspection he noticed a strong odor of mold. Noted that the property was vacant at the time of the inspection, but did not know how long it had been vacant. Respondent stated the appraisal was made subject to since there was an unknown with the roof and mold. The roof had shingles that had been lifted up, and there was evidence of a leak around the fireplace. There was no visible mold, but because the house smelled of mold, respondent noted it in the report. The reviewer conclusions are listed there, as well as the respondent's response to the reviewer's conclusions. I know that a great deal of that has to do with the mold issue, so if you guys have questions about that. The reviewer found that respondent's work was deficient in its compliance with USPAP. However, respondent has been a certified residential appraiser for almost 23 years with no prior discipline. As such, council recommends closure of the matter with letter of warning regarding the reviewer's conclusions noted above.
So move.
Second.
A motion and a second to accept council's recommendation. Is there further discussion? Mr. Johnstone? No? Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
Item number 3, 2013000831. Complaint was filed by a potential homeowner and alleged that respondent overvalued a residential property by misreporting the gross living area, and also alleged that respondent did not report a mold issue in his report as a health and safety risk. Respondent sent a response to the complaint stating the complainant was not his client in the matter. With regard to the mold allegation, respondent stated the stains noticed on the concrete block of the garage are commonplace in the market and are not mold. The concrete block wall of the detached garage showed mineral stains from moisture seepage. This was noted upon the original inspection, but is not considered to present any adverse impact on the subject's overall marketability as originally appraised. Respondent stated it does not present a health or safety risk, as alleged by complainant, and also stated that according to USPAP, porches cannot be included in computation of gross living area. The subject's gross living area was measured as of the effective date of the report and is correct as documented. Building sketch clearly differentiates the square footage of the covered porch, deck, attached garage, and detached garage as separate from the subject's gross living area. The complainant's claim that the porches were included is plainly wrong. Respondent states that based on all the documented evidence, the complaint submitted by complainant is baseless. The reviewer's conclusions are listed there. The respondent didn't give a second response to the reviewer's conclusions. Respondent's license is inactive currently due to illness. He has been disciplined in the past. This appraisal was done on December 31st, 2012. It appears that respondent did not benefit from the probationary period that's listed above there in his disciplinary history. As respondent has already had a significant disciplinary history, but his license is currently inactive, council recommends the authorization of a 30-day suspension to take effect immediately upon the execution of the consent order, and these terms are to be settled by consent order or formal hearing.
Heard council's recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Move to accept by Commissioner Standifer. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Point. And discussion.
Commissioner Green,
Commissioner Hall?
I have a problem with the reviewer in this particular case. It's the reviewer's responsibility to say that $10 per square foot of garage space is too low, or I don't think telling the person that the range of square foot cost for each sale is between $86 and $113 per square foot, yet the adjustment for size was made at $25 per square foot. Evidently, they don't understand the difference. The reviewer does not understand the difference between the two. So consequently, I have a real concern about the person who did the review of this matter, and I'd be almost recommended that this review be made by someone else other than the original reviewer, because it's not up to the reviewer to say whether or not, the adjustment is too high, too low. But what really bothered me is when it said the square foot cost for each sale was between 86 and 113. Because that includes everything, land, building, site, whatever. And so consequently, I'm concerned with the review on this one, and I don't know whether they were able to arrive at the right decision or not based on the information they presented. So I would vote no as to the recommendation until we discuss this other item here.
Just so you guys know, when the review comes back, I just try to include everything that's on the review because I'm not an appraiser and I can't differentiate between stuff like that. So
I appreciate that.
Okay.
You're doing a great job.
Thanks. I just didn't want you to think I was putting
let's face
unnecessary
it, you've
things
got to
in there.
work with what you have. And if it's what you're presented with, then you got to present it to us so that we can make that decision. But after reviewing what the reviewer did, I have questions about the reviewer, and I'm not too sure I can accept that. You know, my opinion, Counselor, you did not have the proper information to work with in order to make a recommendation. And it's my concern that we need to send this back out to another reviewer, let them take a look at it before we make a vote on it. So consequently, when this comes up for a vote, since we have a motion and a second, I am going to vote no. And if that no holds, then I'm going to turn around and make another motion that this be sent to another review appraiser, and whoever reviewed this one be sent a notice that they evidently don't understand how to review these reports.
Thank you, Commissioner Hall. Commissioner Johnstone?
In this particular instance, would it be, although if a commissioner on this board reviewed it, they would be unable to participate in a formal hearing at a later date because they were the reviewer, would it be appropriate or inappropriate for that to occur, Ms. Baird? For I know in my prior service on this commission, we did review those instead of outsourcing them.
I mean, I don't see a problem. I mean, I can't say no, but you can't review it.
I'd like to weigh in on this. I don't think.
If you didn't, I was going to, Mr. Green.
Thank you. Well, then I'll let you, because as chairman, I want to hear your voice.
Well, I don't think we need to be taking up the role of doing the reviews for this, because we're the board the commission that's going to be voting on the approval or the disapproval or whatever the discipline will be. I think possibly in regards to Mr. Hall's recommendation, if it carries to this point, then maybe we could get another one of the reviewers for the state to review this appraisal and not the one who did it originally. But I don't think we need to take up that role ourselves.
As a point of correction, I wasn't including the reviewer to be voting on it. They would be.
Right.
Okay. All right.
I can appreciate that, and Mr. Collinsworth, I empathize, and it's a slippery slope. I don't think that we want to, in addition, take on more responsibility in this process. We've got a good process. We just need to refine it, I think. That's my opinion. Commissioner Point, did you have a comment? Okay. All right.
This is just a reminder, this is a probable cause vote. The respondent would still have the opportunity, if they rejected it, to have a formal hearing. And the expert reviewer would be put on the stand and would testify to their opinions in their report. And if their opinions did not hold water with the commission could vote to not approve any of the individual opinions or all of the individual opinions. You don't have to adopt any specific opinion, or in the future any specific opinion by any expert. And if an expert is found in a formal hearing to not be a good expert, the state would probably not use them again. So it's the attorney's decision whether to use them again or not. It's
but if you just don't think there's enough probable cause to warrant the recommendation, then we just vote the recommendation down.
Right, because the recommendation is to take certain action, and the motion was to accept that recommendation, and it was seconded. So you have the ability, the commission has the ability in this vote to accept or reject or modify. So that's really what's going on here. Commissioner Johnstone?
Could the motion that's on the floor, could somebody restate that?
It was made by Commissioner Standfer.
To approve council recommendation? I'd like to, I move to amend that motion to send it out for another review.
Right.
Does he need a second on that, or are we getting ahead of ourselves?
I think we're getting ahead of ourselves because we have a motion on the table, and we have a second, and we're in discussion.
Well, I don't know that it
So-
would be,
Can't we
Well-
vote on the original motion, and then if you'd like to make a new motion, I think it would
well,
keep
you
it cleaner.
could do it either way.
Take it off the floor.
I mean-
I can rescind my second and he can
Well,
rescind his motion.
I don't think, I mean, the penalty here may very well be appropriate, and I might be amenable to that, provided another reviewer comes up with similar conclusions. So I'm not against council's recommendation. I just want to make sure that the review is adequate before accepting that. So that was my reasoning for amending rather than just voting no altogether.
I can
But I mean,
appreciate
that's,
it.
but you know, you can, whatever's easiest
Well,
for the
we're-
commission, I'm amenable to.
We're still in discussion, so if the original motioners and seconders would like to amend, they're welcome to.
I will rescind my second.
Okay?
I will amend my original motion to obtain additional review us with her recommendation after that second review.
Okay, so we have a restated motion from Commissioner Standifer, which is to have council get a second, and you mean another review from a different reviewer?
That is correct.
Okay, all right. So that's the motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Johnstone. Is there additional discussion on this motion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Before we move on, a question that enters my mind regarding this review, and this might be a question for our USPAP experts. I mean, has this reviewer opined as to value? And if so, have they complied with USPAP? I think we need to set an example internally that if the adjustments are in question and $10 per square foot is too low, is that an appraisal? And if it's an appraisal, if it's an opinion of value, then we need to see this reviewer's support.
That is true.
Experts would have to support any opinions that they contain within their appraisal reviews. They may
Ever
not,
do a
they may not
review-
render an opinion of value, but they may have other opinions in there. That's not to say that this is not an opinion of value. Certainly, I would think that the range of cost.
Well, I bring it up because I think I see very few, to our state reviewers' credit, I see very few that are like this. And I would just like our director to be very, very certain that we comply with our own USPAP regs. There are commissioner comments that I want to hear as well. Commissioner Point.
Have we ever done a review on our reviewers? They have to meet standards too.
They do, and we don't. Sometimes the opposing counsel does.
we had ever-
And certainly the commission, board and commission members have not accepted their findings. So in a way, that is another type of opinion.
No, I don't mean to cut you off. I think that's an important. I just think we need to be super vigilant in this regard.
There's nothing prohibiting us from having our reviewers opine on the value or draw their own conclusions on adjustments or different opinions within the appraisal. They can do that. If they do render opinions like that, they should have a certain level of geographic competency.
Et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
These are standard 3 reviews, correct?
Mr. Johnstone.
Does council provide them with a a form or format that all of the reviewers are providing uniform reviews back, or is it up to each reviewer to develop their own report and make sure it's in compliance with USPAP?
We have a form that we do provide them. That's not to say that they all use the exact same form. A lot of times they do different formatting rather than checking boxes and whatnot. But we do have something that we give them once they become contracted with us, just as a guide. But it's not to say that they all use the exact same form.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we've covered this territory, maybe. Item number 4.
Okay, just so I'm clear on the previous item, we're not doing anything until we get a new review, and then I give you another recommendation. Okay. Item number 4, 20.
When you give that recommendation, I would contrast these two reviews, so that's okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Item number 4, 2013010911. This complaint was filed by a homeowner and alleged that respondent undervalued a residential property by using inaccurate statements and comparable sales choices in the subject appraisal report. Complainant alleged that respondent used a comparable sale that was listed as dilapidated by the county assessor's office and was an as-is sale in the MLS listing. Respondent never addressed the dilapidated property. Complainant also alleged that respondent used a comparable sale in a different zip code than the subject property. Respondent responded to the complaint stating that as far as the homeowner saying he used a dilapidated sale, he was not found on any tax cards as to verify what she is referring to on this status. He stated he did use an MLS sale that says as is, as agents tend to use this statement when the homeowner is saying they will not make any repairs. Doesn't mean that the house is in dilapidated status. As far as the comment on the sale used in a different zip code, respondent stated that while the subject is located in another zip code, not all areas in the zip code are equal. Subject street is not a premium location in its zip code, evidenced by the subject's own history. While some comparable sales were utilized in a different zip code than the subject zip code, their locations have shown to be similar, and respondent claimed the best comparables were used in this report. The reviewer's conclusions, and apparently I spelled reviewer incorrectly, which is just, I don't know, are listed there. The respondent responded to those conclusions, and that's also listed there. The reviewer found the quality of respondent's work is deficient in compliance with USPAP. Respondent has been a certified residential appraiser for over 8 years and has had a letter of caution in the past. As such, council recommends the authorization of a 15-hour USPAP course to be completed within 180 days of execution of the consent order. Such terms are to be settled by consent order or formal hearing.
Okay, so you've heard council's recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion to accept council's recommendation by Commissioner Collinsworth. Do I hear a second? Right, hearing no second. Do I hear another motion?
I make a motion that we send them a letter of caution on this one.
Motion from Commissioner Hall to send a letter of caution. Do I hear a second? Second from Commissioner Johnstone. Discussion.
Some of the statements made by the reviewer, in my opinion, are inappropriate and not consistent. And I say that one of the problems is that the sales are located over a mile away from the subject, located in a different zip code. The reviewer found 12 sales from the previous 12 months similar to the subject. There's not really anything in here to indicate the comparability. It's just their opinion. Their opinion is probably as good as the appraiser. A lot of the comments made there by the review appraiser in here is just inappropriate to the overall property, and I just don't think there's enough evidence here to recommend a 15-hour USPAP course, and I'm not too sure what a USPAP course would do for this person anyway. So that, hey, watch out, your report's not perfect, and just be careful.
Thank you, Commissioner Hall. Commissioner Johnstone?
In following up with what Commissioner Hall said, the reviewer hounded him on the site value, and in the respondent's response, it indicated there were 6 sales that were a part of the work file that they provided to the reviewer.
Well, I'd like to weigh in too, that, you know, really the third bullet point, last part of it is the only thing that's even remotely objective. The rest of the comments from the reviewer are pretty subjective and pretty opinionated, or pretty much based upon opinion. So I tend to agree with the motion. Other commissioner comments? Hearing none, the motion is to issue a letter of caution. The motion's been seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes.
Oh, it'll be closed with a letter of caution?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't want you guys to get confused. I'm going to close the file out with the letter of caution.
As opposed to leaving it open?
Well, I was just making sure you understood completely what we were doing.
I thought I did, but now I'm not sure.
No, you're good. This is just the same normal thing we always do. I was
Okay.
just
All right.
clarifying because that's what I like to do.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Item number 5, 2013-011-451. This complaint was filed by a consumer that is in federal prison for bank fraud and has alleged that respondent communicated an oral appraisal to a bank in a federally related transaction, which requires a written appraisal, and overvalued 3 commercial properties, which included 2 car washes and a strip mall. The respondent indicated that he completed an appraisal of these 2 commercial properties in early 2006 and indicated he was engaged by the buyer and then referred to the lender for the financial data on the property. He indicated that he tried several times to get the data from the bank, and he did not tell them prior to closing any value because they had not provided financial data. He indicated a few days after closing he received the rental schedules and summaries for the shopping center, and he submitted a combined value for the 3 properties of $1,720,000. He indicated the buyer defaulted on the mortgage and the property sold at public auction for $1,500,000. He indicated a few days later that the loan officer asked him to do a business valuation of the properties. He said he did not have much confidence in the reported income statements, but he submitted an appraisal, stated several times that if any information he used proved incorrect, he reserved the right to revise the report. He indicated several months later he was contacted by the FBI and they asked him to bring his files with him. He said he gave them a statement indicating he did not provide a verbal appraisal of $4 million, and other than the business analysis done after the loan was closed, he hasn't done any further appraisal work on these properties. He indicated he no longer has the appraisals or work files because the FBI took them. On June 18, 2013, Executive Director Appraisers provided the respondent a copy of their appraisal, which was submitted with the complaint. The copy provided to the respondent was marked copy at the top of the appraisal report. The respondent indicated he received a letter from the complainant also. Ms. Appraisers requested a copy of that letter. He stated in conclusion he believes his value option was reasonably accurate. The reviewer conclusions are listed there. When I sent out a notice of the reviewer's conclusions, the respondent responded back stating that he rejects all of the allegations that were made against him and the violations noted by the reviewer. The reviewer found that the appraisal report did contain sufficient information or analysis to enable, did not contain sufficient information or analysis to enable the client to properly understand the opinions and conclusions provided in the report. Respondent has been disciplined in the past and is awaiting a formal hearing on a pending matter. As such, counsel recommends the authorization of a civil penalty in the amount of $1,000 to be satisfied within 30 days of execution of the consent order, and a 6-month suspension of his real estate appraiser certification to take effect immediately upon execution of the consent order, Such terms are to be settled by consent order or formal hearing.
Heard council's recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
Moved.
Motion from Commissioner Johnstone, second from Commissioner Standifer.
Yeah.
Is there discussion?
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Point.
If this was completed in 2006 and USPAP says we only keep our files for 5 years or 2 years after a court, is it in date?
Sorry, what was the question?
The question is, if this was the 2006 appraisal, that was 7 years ago. Doesn't USPAP say that we only keep our files for 5 years or 2 years past any court? Are we in compliance with USPAP?
Well, I'm going to go out on a limb, see if I'm right, Director Avers. USPAP, you have to meet USPAP.
Yes.
Doesn't matter how long ago it was, you have to meet USPAP. You are required to keep your files for 5 years.
Right.
So, doesn't matter when you did the appraisal, you still had to meet USPAP. So, if you don't have the file, that's one thing. And if your allegation is that, gee, I couldn't meet USPAP and I don't have the file and I can't prove that I met USPAP, am I off the hook? Then maybe you are. But the fact that you don't have the file doesn't mean you're off the hook in meeting USPAP. I guess that's, am I correct?
Well done. And there's no violation noted here of failure to maintain your work file.
I think that the meat and potatoes wasn't that the work file wasn't maintained. We still put it through the process of being reviewed to check for USPAP compliance, whether or not it's been 5 years, 10 years, whatever, if the complaint is filed. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Certainly, it would be helpful if it was more recent, but this was
Right.
a serious allegation of mortgage fraud. I mean, there's someone in prison for this.
Well, we don't know that. All we know is that this was filed by somebody in prison. We don't know that it's at all related. We don't know that. Commissioner Hall?
Yes. Counselor,
Yes.
are we going to get to hear from these folks January?
Not sure you want to answer that because I'm not sure you want to give any indication of who, what, when, where,
We're not.
why.
The only thing
Yeah,
I-
we'll just say that there's a pending formal.
Well, the only reason why I asked that question is it appropriate to take this action now, since he's going to be coming up supposedly before the commission next month?
I mean, that's up to you.
I don't know, I'm just asking. Is it, I just
I
don't
think
know.
it's a different
It would-
disciplinary.
Yeah, it would be a totally
it's a different
different
file.
case. Totally different file, totally different number, totally different allegations.
Commissioner Johnstone?
It's okay.
Bless
Well, in reference to Mr. Hall's case, how many pending formal hearings do we have in the pipeline?
5
More
or
than
6?
10 or less than 10?
No, I would say less than 10,
More than 5 or less than 5?
around 5.
So there is a high probability that this one's going to be coming up in January.
Not
And
this
based
one.
on, depending upon that,
You know what?
I mean,
I
why
don't
don't we
think,
just-
excuse me, Commissioner Johnstone, please just weigh the case that's before you and don't read anything else into when this is going to be heard or anything else. Let's decide on what's been presented and let's not judge.
well, I'm not judging. I'm just saying when I look at the reasoning and recommendation, that's a part of the recommendation. It clearly says that is awaiting a formal hearing on a pending matter, which, so for me to block that when that's the council's recommendation seems strange, to at least not take
Maybe
that
just
into
consider that as
consideration.
part of the disciplinary history. Don't
Right.
really weigh it as your
I
decision into
understand,
this
but I mean,
matter.
that's part of what's weighing on this, on my decision. Part of me thinks that it would be best to table this until the termination of that formal hearing. That's kind of what I'm thinking, Because it could be that, depending upon the outcome of the formal hearing, it may be a clean slate, or it could be suspension, who knows? Then if it's a clean slate, we take this up. If it's a suspension, then this goes away.
If history has taught me nothing, it's that delays happen, and
I'm sorry, delays of what?
delays happen with formal hearings. This is a settlement, consent order. If he rejects it, we move forward. If he doesn't, it gets put in the pipeline for formal hearing. If we're going to all meet our timeliness guidelines of complying with or resolving cases within 180 days, I would recommend we move forward with a decision, of some type of decision, and not wait.
Commissioner Hall.
I would assume, but probably incorrectly, does he have a legal counsel already? Well, the only thing I was saying is, like I think you pointed out, if we go ahead and approve this right now and he rejects it, his counsel will probably say, well, let's just go ahead and roll these into one case and get this thing over with.
I don't know that we could make that judgment call, because I don't know about that. I don't know that they would be rolled into one, so it would probably be best to just concentrate on them separately.
I think we should separate them out, but I'm just thinking from his standpoint, he might want to do that. I don't know what he's going to do. I don't have a clue.
Can't speak for him, but
No.
I wouldn't make that judgment call.
Okay. All right, we've got, Chairman, if I understand
there's a
correctly, we got a motion and a second on the.
There's a motion to accept and and there's a second to accept. And we've been in conversation. Commissioner Johnstone, did you have one more final comment?
No.
Okay, good. All right. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Okay, item number 6.
Okay, item 6, 2013016611. This complaint was filed by an appraiser and alleged he received an appraisal order from respondent, an unregistered appraisal management company. Respondent sent a response to the complaint stating that it is a federal contractor acting on behalf of 2 agencies, the FDIC and the United States Marshals Service. It only does contracting on these 2 agencies' behalf, no other private banks, lenders, etc. Respondent stated it has been their understanding that as these are federal contracts and the federal government is requesting that respondent order evaluations on their behalf, respondent is within a jurisdictional exception within the state. Respondent also stated it had been asked about this same circumstance about a year ago by the state of North Carolina, and it was reconciled that respondent was not an AMC. Respondent stated its engagement documentation clearly provides who the order is for, that being either the FDIC or United States Marshals. Respondent stated that should it ever move into the private sector, it will certainly take all steps required in standard AMC licensing. And under the reasoning and recommendation, I've noted TCA 6294041, which states that this part shall not apply to a national or state bank, federal or state savings institution that is subject to direct regulation or supervision by an agency of the United States government or by the Department of Financial Institutions that receives a request for the performance of an appraisal from one employee of the financial institution, and another employee of the same financial institution assigns the request for the appraisal to an appraiser who is an independent contractor to the institution. However, respondent is not a bank, saving institution, etc., and there has been no proof provided by respondent that it is directly regulated by an agency of the United States or the Department of Financial Institutions. Respondent seems to be providing valuation services. Thus, they do not seem to fall under our exemption statute. However, the file did not contain valid proof that respondent was providing AMC services. As such, counsel recommends closure of the matter with a letter of instruction regarding requirements of an entity providing AMC services, as well as an explanation of the exemption statute.
Counsel, who, you don't indicate, who will you send this letter of instruction to?
The respondent.
Okay.
I so move we accept counsel's recommendation.
We have a motion and a second. Motion from Commissioner Collinsworth, second from Commissioner Hall. Discussion?
letter back, then you'll make a further decision whether to just go ahead and close.
Well, if I send out a letter of instruction, then the file will just be closed at that time. So once the letter is sent to the respondent, then simultaneously we close the file out. We don't require anything to be returned back from them on these letters.
Okay, well, I was reading this thing here. Such counsel recommends closure of the matter with a letter of instruction regarding requirements of an entity providing AMC services as status. And I was reading or hearing that you're going to be expecting a reply from them.
No, I'm just going to do a letter of instruction explaining our exemption statute to them. I'm not going to require anything back from them, just so they know if they decide to change the services they're providing, they may need to take steps that are different.
You're not saying they're in compliance now or not?
Yes.
They are? Okay.
Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Item number 7.
Item number 7 is 2013-008021. Complaint was filed by an individual who requested an appraisal at her father's home because it was in a reverse mortgage and she was trying to initiate a short sale so that she could purchase the home and live in it. The complaint alleged that respondent overvalued the subject residential property. Respondent sent a response to the complaint stating he did complete an appraisal of the property for the complainant. He indicated that complainant requested a liquidation value for the property, and respondent explained that in order to determine this value, it would be necessary to also establish an opinion of the as-is market value. Respondent stated that complainant agreed with the scope of work, and respondent proceeded with the assignment, inspected the property, and found the overall condition to be fair to poor with extensive deferred maintenance due to structural issues in addition to defective floor covering, walls, windows, etc. Respondent then learned that the subject property was listed for sale with a contract out for its purchase. Respondent stated he also found out that the purchase offer indicated that the existing improvements would be removed and a new single-family dwelling would be constructed. In the course of respondent's market research, he confirmed that the subject site value was greater than the value of the property as currently improved. As a result, the highest and best use was to remove the existing improvements for construction of a new single-family dwelling. Respondent's opinion of value reflected what a potential buyer would pay to rehab the existing improvements for their personal use. This is not the highest and best value of the subject property. Respondent stated the report also includes an opinion of the liquidation value, which is the site value. Respondent stated the cost approach was not applicable due to the age and condition of the improvements. The reviewer conclusions are listed as well as the respondent's response to those. It's kind of lengthy in the response there. The reviewer found that the appraisal lacked the analysis of highest and best use and provided no detailed explanation or support of the 4 tests of highest and best use of the subject as vacant and as improved. The methodology used in addressing the value by adjusting only the sales of existing homes and not analyzing relevant characteristics or adjusting the vacant land sales is in violation of USPAP. Respondent has been a certified general appraiser for almost 12 years with no prior disciplinary action against him. As such, counsel recommends closure of the matter with a letter of warning regarding the violations addressed by the reviewer.
Motion we accept counsel's recommendation.
Motion to accept by Commissioner Hall. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Johnstone. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries.
Item number 8, 2013-011471. This complaint was filed by a homeowner and alleged that respondent was slow in acting on the order to do an appraisal of the subject property, so complainant had to change the closing date. Complainant also alleged the appraisal was low and the sales were awful. Complainant alleged he suffered a significant financial loss due to the inaccuracies in respondent's appraisal. Respondent filed a response stating he was asked to perform a VA appraisal on the subject property. Respondent stated he had had an unexpected death in the family and was behind schedule because of this, and admitted it did take him longer to get to the appraisal, but he did it as soon as he could. Respondent also stated that he measured the house and it had 1,720 square feet on the main floor and a 1,400 square foot basement with 650 square feet of finished area. In the appraisal process, respondent separated these out and listed it on the appraisal. The MLS listing has the same measurements. Respondent stated he counted the screen, sun porch area, and the living area because it was heated. The finished rooms are split out in above ground and below ground rooms, and respondent stated he did adjust all the comparable cells for inferior site. The reviewer conclusions are listed there. Respondent didn't provide a second response to those. The reviewer found no merit in complainant's allegation that respondent was slow to act on the order. The reviewer found that respondent correctly stated the square footage measurements by stating them separately in the appraisal report. He did find several violations of USPAP within the appraisal report. As such, council recommends the authorization of a 15-hour residential report writing course to be satisfied within 180 days of the execution of the consent order. Such terms are to be settled by consent order or formal hearing.
Heard the recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
I recommend we send this person a letter of
A motion to send a letter of caution instead of council's recommendation. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded. A motion was by Commissioner Hall. Second one was by Commissioner Point. Is there additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Item 9.
Okay, item 9, 2013-023-421. This complaint was filed by the administrative staff of the Tennessee Real Estate Appraiser Commission and alleged that respondent submitted an altered, misleading course completion certificate where he had used whiteout over another student's name and license number. Respondent responded to the complaint stating that for some reason a copy of his transcript was not ready the day of class, and the instructor had to give him a copy to write in his own name and information. Respondent claimed that it was not his fault that the school did not have the certificate ready the day of class. Respondent stated that when he realized at the end of class that the instructor had nothing to give him to show completion of the class, he took a photo of another student's transcript and used whiteout to fill in his own name and address. Respondent then stated he emailed the student transcript, including his own personal information, for the purpose of making the commission aware that he had attended this course pending official documentation from the school. Respondent stated that he did complete the course and was attempting to meet the deadline for renewal. Respondent stated he completed the last online course just hours prior to submitting the uniform request for education credit. It should be noted that subsequent to respondent sending in the altered certificate, this office did receive a proper course completion certificate from the school pertaining to respondent's attendance. And on the I don't know if you guys have further questions about that, or we can move on to the reasoning and recommendation. I did note there, TCA 6239-326 states, the rights of any applicant or holder under a certificate as a state licensed or certified real estate appraiser may be revoked, suspended, or restricted, or the owner of the certificate may be assessed a civil penalty of up to $1,000 per violation or otherwise disciplined in accordance with this chapter upon any of the following grounds. 1. Procuring or attempting to procure a license or certificate pursuant to this chapter by knowingly making a false statement, submitting false information, refusing to provide complete information in response to a question in an application for a license or certificate, or through any form of fraud or misrepresentation. 4. An action or omission involving dishonesty, fraud, or misrepresentation. Or 5. A violation of any of the standards for appraisals and appraisal practice as set forth in this chapter and the rules and regulations promulgated by the Commission. While respondent did in fact take and complete the required education course, he did submit a false education certificate to this office. As such, council recommends that any disciplinary action against respondent be left to the will of the Commission. I'm recommending discussion on the matter to determine the proper course of action, keeping in mind that discipline in the form of a civil penalty may be assessed up to $1,000 per violation.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion?
Move to discuss.
That's a good motion. Thank you.
John Stone?
All right, well, Commissioner Johnstone, why don't you go ahead and start moving?
To discuss.
Yes. All of a sudden, cat's got your tongue, is that?
I'm just sitting here thinking, he went to the class. He must have signed up late. They didn't have he was there trying to rush in underneath a renewal deadline, and he didn't have enough certificates. So he made a copy and wrote his name in
I think
to try to justify and prove that he was there.
I think what happened was
Sounds like he's running scared to me, just trying to get in.
at first he was saying that they didn't have the teacher, the instructor, whomever didn't have enough certificates ready for the day of class. Then, as communication went on, he started saying that at first he was saying that they gave him someone else's certificate to white out and put his own information in. Then the story changed to, no, the instructor wasn't giving him someone else's. I don't know if he just panicked or what, but on his own accord, he decided to take a photo of another student's certificate, and then on his own accord, he whited out their information and put his name and license number and submitted it to this office.
They send those to you pretty quick. I mean, it's not like they take months.
I'm not really sure why he chose to do that. That's not really...
Any other commissioners? Comments? Especially the appraisal. Well, we're all appraisal commissioners here today, so I guess I'll weigh in on this. I've been up against similar deadlines, and actually, I've had the institute at one point. The volunteer chapter couldn't seem to get certificates out timely. It was months at one point for me, and I guess personally, what weighs heavily on this case is he took the class. He attended the class, and isn't it true, Director Avers, that all classes have to submit a roster? Don't the schools submit a roster of who attended after the class is over? Or they issue, what do they issue, certificates directly to you?
No. The course providers don't submit rosters to us. They maintain rosters, but they do not submit them to my office unless requested.
What is the official notice you get from the provider that XYZ person attended and completed? You get official notice. What form is it?
The course providers give attendees a course certificate, course completion certificate, and the students submit the course completion certificates to my office.
That's it?
Upon renewal.
I was under the impression that the school provided the commission something directly. They do not. It's up to the student.
I think what you may be thinking of is if, as appraisers, when we take a course in classroom, they will tell us there at that point that the real estate commission, if you're also an affiliate broker or broker, if you let them know that the time when you're taking the class, they will notify the real estate commission, so you'll get continuing education on the real estate side, but not on the appraisal side. That is your own responsibility.
I see. So the only record that the commission gets is from the student,
That's their certificate.
and that is in the form
Or
of the
that
certificate.
UAC form, or whatever they hand you.
Right. We'll accept the school's course completion certificates.
But not from the
particular one.
school. It's from the student, right?
Well, the school has to sign the course completion certificate, but yeah, they give it to the student.
Question, if this
No.
student had attended this class, and at the end of it, we understand that they did not have his certificate there, is that correct to that point? Supposedly he went to this class, he took this class, and then at the end of the class, they did not have a certificate for him at that point. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
What would have happened? Because evidently, if he had not been under the gun, so to speak, I can't imagine why he or she would have done what they did. I just can't imagine it. So, what kind of leadway would y'all give if they were to call and say, look, I just attended this course, blank, this was my provider, blank, this is where it was, blah, 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 blah. They're supposed to get me my certificate in 4 days. I'm supposed to have my stuff in today, and I can't do it. What would be the position at that point of y'all?
Can I rephrase Mr. Hall's question, because you're getting almost exactly the question I was going to ask, was how long past the expiration date do you have before there's an additional penalty assessed? Is it 30 days or 60 days before they add an additional maybe $100 fine?
30 days before your credential expires, you're supposed to renew. He was trying to avoid the $100 late fee. Not only would I, but I did, when I first got it, contacted the school to say, can you send over the course completion certificate for this student? I got this weird thing. Did you do this? And that's when I found out that there was a problem.
So,
Did you do this?
so consequently, how much later did you finally get a, quote, certification from this entity?
Same day.
I think it comes down to an ethical.
So really, there was no
Situation.
reason why this person should have done what they did. I mean, as far as meeting any time zone or anything of this nature. Well, you want me to read my comment that I made after I read over this? Fine then. I mean, to me, this was just a lapse in ethical judgment.
How much time between, they said they took their last class just moments or hours before the renewal. So how many days prior to that had they taken this course? 2 days, 1 day, a week?
The day of their.
The day of. So they took that day they went and took a class, and then that night they ran home and did an online course to try to meet the deadline.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
In addition, they needed 2 classes, basically? Okay. Commissioner Hall, you seem to be in a great position to make a motion.
I make a motion that we find this individual
Do the math.
let me stop.
He's mid-motion.
Stop it. Go ahead.
Okay, all right.
This kind of blends in with that. We've all been faced with being up against a deadline, whether it be an appraisal organization or the state. But this kind of behavior, I don't think we can tolerate that either. So I would recommend something less severe than $1,000, something in the neighborhood of $250 as
You can do anything up to 1,000 per violation. So it's up to your discretion.
discussion, Mr. Hall.
I have to go back with what Commissioner Hall said. I mean, when I look at the timing, I mean, I'm the world's worst at procrastinating. I mean, but when it gets down to the day of and then you're 2 classes back and then it gets to the point where you're whiting out, that's just fraud. I'd say, to me, I'm thinking you got to go all in on 1,000. That's just me.
What if this individual comes in and he addresses the commission and he begs for you to suspend the rules in his case?
Like we did last time.
Oh, I didn't mention that.
I didn't say you.
I wasn't using specifics.
I didn't say
I'm
you.
just saying, what if? What if someone comes in and they plead hardship,
Well,
Commissioner Johnstone?
They would
then
probably,
what?
well, they would, if they're going to do that, they would have probably already talked to counselor and said, I'd like to address the commission in reference to this issue, and they'd be here today.
Can I make a motion then?
I digress.
Or would Mr. Hall like to finish his motion?
So, okay, my motion would be to fine this individual $500 for this gross lapse of ethical judgment.
We have a motion to fine the respondent $500. Do I hear a second?
That's just fraud, man.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Have a second from Commissioner Stanifer. Is there further discussion, Commissioner Johnstone?
It's just fraud. You got to go all in at 1,000 in my mind.
I have two questions. I haven't yet renewed him. Because the statute did read or refuse to renew. And so, although he was set to renew 26 days ago, he has not renewed. His expiration date is on the 13th, so he's a couple days from renewing. I assume that he would be offered this consent order for $500. Would he also owe the late fee for his renewal?
Yes.
So he's already paid the renewal fee. He's late now. Late fee, $500, and we renew him. Okay. I want to make sure that I'm clear, because I have to communicate with him.
Once again, it's a will of the commission, but that
Right.
would be my
It's the vote.
understanding.
I want to make sure.
Sure.
Just make sure you're specific when you're doing your motion so that I know what I'm doing as well.
So the motion, you want to restate it, or do you want me to?
Go ahead, Commissioner.
All right. The motion was to fine the respondent $500. And there was a second. Is there further discussion?
Is it clear he had 31 days or 30 days after the license expired to pay that penalty and just, was that right? Did I hear that right? Thank Eric.
He could pay a $100, if I understand correctly, he could pay a $100 late fee and turn his paperwork in
Legitimately.
after that. Legitimately.
Or he could forge something and cost him up to $900 more and be unethical and fraudulent.
Correct. That's my understanding.
Just want to make sure I was clear on that.
That's my understanding.
Thank
I
you.
already have the renewal documents, so I think I have everything except for the late fee.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
No.
All right, so we have,
Roll call, Mr. Chairman.
well, we know who said no. Commissioner Point was against it. Commissioner Johnstone was against it. Commissioner Collinsworth was against it. Commissioner Green's against it. So, motion fails. Do I hear
Can we
a
ma-
revised motion?
Can we make a new motion?
A new motion, please.
I so move that we go along with General Counsel's recommendation of a $1,000 fine in this case.
We have a motion to fine the respondent $1,000. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Johnstone. Is there discussion? Commissioner Hall and Commissioner Stanifer. Would you like to address the commission, or?
I think in an effort to give an individual the benefit of the doubt, not knowing all the circumstances, it appears $1,000 to me could be somewhat severe, but then again, it may not be, because I just don't know the intent or the circumstances. I do know that he did take the course, he did pass the course, he was up to the last day or so, and he was probably panicked, and he made a bad decision. So the question is, how severe should the penalty be? And that seems to me there may be circumstances that would warrant less than $1,000. We don't know that for sure, because we really don't know the entire circumstances. So,
Commissioner Johnston.
What goes on their record? Is it a consent order, or is it what will their record state as far as future cases?
As far as disciplinary,
Well,
is
when you
this
look at
disciplinary
history,
action?
I mean,
Is-
whether it's $1 or $1,000, what is that? Like, when I look at pending history, this gentleman or lady has had 3 cases in the course of their career, and they were all dismissed. What will it say on this next one, whether it's $1 or $1,000? Will it even show up, since this was an administrative thing?
Are you asking if the dollar amount is going to show up?
No, well,
He's asking, does this qualify as
Does this
disciplinary action?
Yeah,
Is
that
this
was it.
disciplinary action?
it is disciplinary.
wording looked like. you looked it up.
If he agreed to it, it'd be closed with the consent order for $1,000 or whatever the amount would, whatever the
So
final vote ends up being.
So in terms of how it goes on his record, it's irrelevant if it's $1 or $1,000. It's still going to be closed with a consent order of X. So it doesn't, the fine is irrelevant in terms of how it impacts them in their record.
That's not necessarily true. I mean, certainly, like how it's reported on the Federal Registry, it just would say suspension, revocation, and voluntary surrender are the only public side disciplines. Anyone can see that. The other disciplines, and that's all it would say is other, only state sides can see. State agencies can see other history, but it says other. So in order for them to find out what other means, I have to pick up the phone and call Mississippi or whatever state it is and say, can you send me the history on John Doe? And then I would have to get the history and weigh it and go, okay, well, that one was just education, and this one was just a $500 civil penalty. Well, that one was a 6-month suspension, and he's had 9 consent orders, and it's kind of a, he's got kind of a, probably I should make a recommendation to the commission that they not license this guy because he's got a huge history. You know, that when I write up the summaries for past histories or whatever for the commission, it does matter. I consider things mitigating or aggravating.
I'm following you on that, but it's not going to impact how they apply for a license in another state. They'll have to sign, I've been disciplined, and it's going to show up as other, and it's not going to say whether it was 50 cents or $999.99. So in terms of the impact on this person's appraisal career, the fine is irrelevant.
I mean, the amount, if that's what you're asking.
Right, the amount of the,
unless someone requested a copy of the consent order or something to
I
know
think
this.
the amount of the fine speaks to the gravity of the charge when you look it up.
I mean, signatures and those kind of things are critical to our profession. And to me, that's, you know, and I understand he was in, this person was in a position of panic. We've all been there. But, you know, I would have just called Nicole and said, or Dennis, and said, hey, this is where I am. If what's my position on this? And I'm out $100 and I don't lose my license. Or I can forge this document and then save $100 and, you know, and think, I mean, there's probably all kind of things going on through the head. But I just, when you're starting to do that, that's just crossing the line in my mind. When you start whiting out, that's just, I don't know. I just have a hard time with that.
Thanks, Commissioner Johnstone. Any other commissioners want to weigh in, or we'll get to a vote? Anybody else? So we have a motion to fine $1,000. We have a second. Any new thoughts from anyone? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Commissioner Hall abstains. Motion carries.
I have one additional matter. I apologize. It's really quick. No conclusions or anything like that. I forgot to make a copy for you all, so I'm just going to go through it, and then if you have questions, you can stop me.
Number 10?
No, we haven't done number 10 yet. So I'll just go quickly. Sorry, I didn't make you guys a copy. Item 10 is 2013-016-761. This complaint was filed by the administrative staff of the Tennessee Real Estate Appraiser Commission as a result of a news article alleging that respondent violated AMC independency. Such news article dated August 19, 2013 stated that respondent was facing a lawsuit from a former chief appraiser who was alleging that respondent violated federal regulations and terminated her employment in response to her complaints. It was alleged that respondent's parent corporation developed a program to recruit mortgage brokers and loan officers by telling prospective recruits they could provide their own personal list of appraisers to be included on the approved panel for the appraisal process at respondent's AMC's business. Regulations under the Truth in Lending Act requires that employees, officers, and directors in the loan process not be directly involved in selecting, retaining, recommending, or otherwise influencing the choice of who will perform evaluation or who may be included from a panel of approved appraisers. Respondent sent a response to the complaint stating that Respondent and its parent corporation have thoroughly investigated the claims made by the former employee of Respondent and have determined that her lawsuit has absolutely no merit. Respondent stated that it intends to assert a vigorous defense against the former employee's false accusations. The disciplinary history on this is there was one prior complaint was closed with no action. Respondent is set for trial on the above referenced matter on August 18th, 2014 in Orange County, California. Due to the severity of the allegations in relation to the Truth in Lending Act, counsel recommends the authorization of a litigation monitoring order pending the outcome of the jury trial on the previously mentioned date of August 18th, 2014. So what this does is basically it's sort of in the form of a consent order, but it's titled a litigation monitoring order, which just states that we're going to monitor what's going on with this respondent until the trial on August 18th, 2014, which I know is kind of far away, but it's really a way for us to kind of keep track of what's going on with them. And it also, without going into the specific language of what the order states, it kind of is a way for us to make sure that when this trial does happen, the respondent will send us all the documents from the outcome and this and that, so that if we need to do something further, then we can at that time. So yes, because
Well, before you move, let me ask a quick question. Is this, so this is an AMC, and are they still operating in Tennessee?
Yes. I mean, they have active registration. I don't know that they're doing business.
yeah, they're active till 2015.
Okay, so, you know, the commission just needs to realize that an acting AMC can do a lot of damage to appraisers and the public, and this would be an authorization for our legal counsel to monitor them, which I leave it to the will of the commission. I just wanted that clarification. Do I hear a motion regarding this matter?
I'm going to make a motion that
A motion by Commissioner Hall to accept council's recommendation, a second by Commissioner Stanifer. Is there a discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
I don't have any more surprises.
Really?
Yep.
I have
Sorry.
one further question, counsel.
Okay, Commissioner Hall has a question of Counselor Baird.
Whatever happened to the individual who was in a formal hearing? Recommendation was made, and recommendation was made on that thing. I think Mr. Johnstone and I both were against any settlement on that thing until they came before the commission. Do y'all ever know what happened to that individual or that case?
All exactly.
It was a condemnation case. It was a
It's still
condemnation
set.
case.
Oh, yeah.
They requested a continuance. It's still set.
It's set for a formal. They requested a continuance, and I think it must have been granted, so it's kind
I mean, it won't be long. I mean, it will be long, but
Yeah.
Like 6 months or so? Or?
that
That's beyond their control, and they probably have no idea. So,
Well,
I know when it is, but I probably shouldn't say because I'm not trying to bear out any particular respondent. The judge granted the continuance, so they were granted one continuance, and if they request it, and
I just want to make sure it was still on the being considered, and that it was still going to be coming before the commission.
it's still coming before the commission.
Okay, that's all I needed.
are we just housekeeping matters? Director, are we having a meeting in January?
Yes.
So whatever the, okay. Is there other commissioners that may not be able to attend in January that they're aware of? Commissioner points out. Do we know the official date of the meeting?
Second Monday, I can't recall off the top of my head right now. I'm sorry. 13th.
13th, okay. Dennis is some kind of date savant, I think. So, thank you. All right, so I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So move.
Second.
We are adjourned. We're not going to vote. We're just going to adjourn.